Y'all wanna go get you?
Yo, y'all know Walmart selling polo
like
now?
Martin, lead like Harriet, fight like Malcolm.
Love it. What's up, Teen Talk fam? It's your host, Miss KK, here with
your boy DJ Dede.
Your boy Sean.
Deshawn B.
And the legendary Ajane Jacob.
We also have a special guest panelist, Miss Kennedy Chanel. She is the owner, writer, and host of Other, as well as the first Teen Talk director, creating the position for herself. Kennedy is currently studying for the LSAT to become an attorney at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Kennedy, we are so happy for you to be joining us right now.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. So let's get these teens talking. It is time for News Theory, a segment created to form a constructive commentary on the news and discuss a deeper meaning behind the headlines. This week, we are going to be discussing the importance of personal branding and the consequences of letting your brand get out of control. The headlines that sparked this conversation is the scandals involving YouTubers Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star. If you are not updated with the drama, please make sure you go ahead and look at the headlines and then come back and join the conversation. Essentially, the theory is Shane and Jeffree, in the beginning of their career, allowed the public to create their personal brand for them. Shane was known for problematic skits involving sketchy language and racially insensitive language. And Jeffree was the makeup artist who was not afraid to be belligerent, unapologetically outspoken, and essentially a mean person. Now, years later, they are trying to change their brand and image from what they profited from into something else. Deshawn, how do you feel about people who brand themselves based off of profit or trends? Is it really a personal brand or a strategic move?
I personally feel like it's not a personal brand if it's not who you personally are or what you represent. I feel like a lot of people resonate with brands because they feel connected to it based off the message that they're perceiving off their social platforms or however they are in front of the camera. So I feel like it's very important to really be who you are, because a lot of people will be very disappointed to know that their idol or somebody they looked up to is not who they thought they were.
Right. And what about you, Ajane? How do you feel about people changing their brand after all of these years when they've made a persona for themselves that they're not necessarily comfortable with anymore because it's not popular?
Well, I honestly say it depends on the situation, because it can be positive and derogatory at the same time. If you intentionally presented yourself as someone else, then I feel like you set yourself up for failure, because it's only a matter of time you can fake it before people know the truth. Now, let's say you started off one way. So let's say, for example, I started a brand and I started off as a really, really girly girl.
Right.
And as I grew, I realized that that's not who I am anymore. I want to be a tomboy. It's more of like, there's a difference between representing yourself and I feel like scamming people for who you truly are.
Right. And I resonate a lot with that, because in high school, even though I was academically inclined, like I was in honors classes and all of that good stuff, a lot of people had this version of me that I was just the goodest thing on earth. I just get good grades, talk good. I don't have like I was the perfect child. But a lot of the times when they would meet me, that's not how I was. And it got to a point where I kept having to almost check people and be like, hey, you can't push me over. You can't do any of that. So Kennedy, have you ever had to advertise and correct people when they construed your own personal brand? And how did you handle that when people would mistake your character? You're muted.
There we go. Sorry. I don't think I've ever had to correct somebody on my personal brand per se. My character, yes, maybe. I think those are kind of two totally different things. Because your character is who you are on a deeper level. Your personal brand is what you want people to see.
Oh, okay.
So my personal brand I think deeply about my personal brand. I'm going to be honest. My mother was the person that taught me to think deeply about my personal brand before anybody else really did. the thing about social media and how we discuss social media, because my now major is journalism with a social media focus, when you have a personal brand, you are in complete power of that brand. So your original statement, Jeffree Star and Sean Dawson, they allowed social media to create their personal brand for them. I feel like I have to disagree.
Okay.
Because what that makes it sound like is it makes it sound like the internet made them do it. The internet didn't make Sean Dawson post racial insensitive comments. The internet didn't make Jeffree Star be an asshole. Oh, I'm sorry.
The drill.
I'm sorry. It's a different setting. We're not on the radio, so I forgot. Anyway, so the internet didn't make them do these things.
Right.
What happened was they posted these things. They realized the internet liked it, and they continued to do it. The thing about them and the thing about me is I want to guess most of you guys are Generation Z, right?
I think so.
Yeah, like 1999 and down.
Yes.
So I'm not. I'm a millennial. They're a millennial. The thing about millennials is that millennials didn't grow up with social media. It just popped up in the middle of high school. For them, maybe in the middle of college. Everybody was learning what the internet was, and nobody knew that the internet was this permanent place. The internet has this idea that you post something, it disappears, it's not there anymore. That's false. And, Generation Z has the opportunity to know that and learn that. So while they're children, they get to know what the internet is and know what the internet does and use the internet in that way. We were using the internet thinking like, this is not going to matter. When I go to law school, nobody's going to look at no, everybody's going to look at your Instagram. Everybody's going to look at your Facebook. Everybody's going to look at all of these things. They don't disappear. They're not minimal things. They're huge things, and nobody makes you do anything on the internet. So for these people, Sean Dawson and Jeffree Star, who we're talking about right now, they are 100% personally responsible for their personal brand.
Okay. I like that. And that is true that the internet doesn't make anybody do anything. You're the one who pressed that post button. You're the one who decided to say what you wanted to say. And just a note for everyone who is in this discussion right now, this discussion will also be aired on 88.1, the radio station. So we are going to be on YouTube and on radio. Now, when we're talking about social media, Deshawn, I wanted to ask you, as someone who is also working on their personal brand and you're watching other people, do you feel like the internet has the right to hold people accountable for their own personal brand? And why?
Depending on what you represent, yes, because just depending on what exactly you want the internet to know you for, what is just your personal brand is supposed to be looking like. I feel like certain things, it just really depends on the situation. We know Donald Trump, it seems like he could post anything he wants, and the internet just reacts the same way, and the same thing continues to happen. He's still the president, everything is still going the same way. When it comes to people like Nick Cannon, when he made his thoughts be known on the internet, he actually went back and apologized, but it was so much backlash, he ended up losing, wilding out. So it just really just depends on what platforms you represent, because it doesn't really matter what your personal brand is. When you underneath somebody else, it's almost like your personal brand becomes their brand as well. So anything that you might say, they can receive a backlash based off them respecting, or I should say representing you and representing what you stand for.
And I think that also we can take that to a smaller level to people who aren't as big as celebrities like Nick Cannon, Donald Trump. For us, I feel like on a day-to-day basis, it reminds me of like, who's in your crew? Who are you associated with? Because part of them, they're also part of your brand. So we can take that big sentiment and take it down a couple notches to our own personal lives. Ajane, I wanted to ask you, whenever you hear somebody say, oh, I wasn't perfect, how do you feel about that phrase? Like, I never said I was perfect. I never said I did anything right.
I mean, typically when people say that, it's because they messed up on something. And it's true. Nobody is perfect. And what people have to understand is that the internet is bipolar. Sometimes, I mean, not like the audience. I personally feel like it depends on who your audience is, because you can do something and your fans can be all for it, but you got millions of other people that will be like, nah, that ain't cool, that ain't right. You know, at the end of the day, no one is perfect, but you do need to be held accountable for the actions that you make, period. That's just life.
I feel that. And Deshawn, I'm going to let you go. But Day Day, I want to hear your thoughts on the question I just asked Ajane. When somebody you watch on social media comes out with maybe a scandal and it kind of changes your perception of them, how do you feel when they do say, I wasn't perfect, I never said I was, and all these things? As a consumer of their social media, how do you feel?
Well, I feel like social media is just based on media. You know, the second key word of social media, which is media.
Right.
Media is just, just it's entertainment. You know, media, they want you to know and want you to see whatever they want you to. They're not going to really show you what the actuality of the situation. So they,
I feel that.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. And what about you, Deshawn? Go ahead and what you wanted to say before.
I definitely feel like the internet makes people feel like they're a victim. And I feel like it allows them to act like they didn't have a choice. And that's when it goes back to you always have a choice. When it comes to, once it's released, it's like they want people to feel bad for them. It's like they didn't have a choice in what they posted. Okay. It's like a lot of people who have their personal brand do not take radical responsibility. And just
well, my question to that would be, do you think it's appropriate for them to then profit from that image that they let go on for years and years and then try to change it in the process? Are they accountable for those actions, or should we feel some type of way because they profited from them for so many years?
You definitely should feel some type of way, depending on how their character was. I always want to say it really depends on how their character was.
Okay.
Because I want to say a personal brand, just like Kennedy was saying, your personal brand matches your character. You're going to always show different parts
from your character.
But you will always show different parts of your character in your personal brand. And sometimes people can overlook what your character is, especially if you know that person. It's almost like if you see your friend on social media portraying to be something that they're not, but because you know them personally, you see different parts of their character when they're kind of manipulating social media based off just how their character is.
And then Kennedy, I wanted to ask you, because you have your own personal brand, you have your own social media, but then you're also involved in your creation called Other. So I wanted to ask you, what advice would you give someone who has lost control of their brand and is not clear what they want to stand for or how they should start renewing their brand?
So the question is that my question would be, how do you lose control of your personal brand?
Well, I feel like you would lose, not necessarily lose control, but let's say you've changed in your own personal life and that brand that you have put out for everyone to consume does not match. So how would somebody begin to fix that problem? And we seem to have lost Kennedy. So I'm going to give that question to the legendary Ajane Nicole. How would you think, what steps do you think people would take to fix that?
The steps that you would take to fix that, I would honestly say you would need some professional help and some self-reevaluation. Because, for example, I think about the Nick Cannon situation. I feel like he was trying to expand who he really was and not contradicted the brand of his show, which is fun, laid back, and joking. And it's like very, very sad that something so traumatic happened to him to where he lost all of that. But in all honesty, like people say, your character is somewhat similar to your brand. So knowing the character and knowing that Nick Cannon didn't have bad intentions, he wanted to speak the truth, he will bounce back. So that's why I said self-reevaluation and professional help, because in order to build a brand, you're going to need some out-of-the-box thinkers.
Okay, I like that answer a lot. What about you, Deshawn? When it comes to, let's say, your own personal experience of having your own character growth from how you were like freshman year of high school, how would you work on letting people know who maybe knew you freshman year and now are seeing you, growing a young adult in the world? Like, I'm not like that. I don't do that type of stuff no more. I don't go out to parties late at night just to go and do some crazy stuff. That's not who I am. How does it feel doing that? And how long did it take you to have that character that you now have solidified in the world? And maybe not character, let's say personal brand.
I personally believe I've been building my personal brand ever since I was in high school. And I say that because your personal brand is what people perceive you as. So the very first time I ever reached out to somebody and asked for their help, that very moment led up to what my personal brand is. Every person you come in contact with is helping your personal brand. It's giving you more leverage and more people that's speaking your name into different rooms. So I really feel like just knowing exactly where you want to get to and knowing that failure is okay will allow your brand to really grow and prosper. Because if you're that type of person that always kind of beat themselves up because they made a mistake or they're not learning something rapidly or growth is not coming in the time frame that they want, then you won't receive the same results of a person who's more accepting of where they are right now in this moment.
Yeah, could I add on to that as well?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I feel like growth is all part of the process. Like for me, like how you mentioned, being a different person from freshman year, to obviously being the person I am now, the people you grew up with, they respect that, when they see, you're personally growing and they see you're doing better for yourself and they respect that. And that actually motivates the next, you never know who's looking up to you. You never
really
know
does.
who you're inspired by, just being different and thinking out of the box and growing.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead, Ajane. Spark some commentary, Day. Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, to bounce off of what you just said, my question would be is, for today, how do you think people perceive you and your branding?
I would think that people perceive me as a hard worker, a multitasker, just genuinely about my business. I can definitely say people feel like I'm about my business. Even people in my family, like I have, my auntie, I love her to death. She's like in her mid-20s and she goes out more than I do. And a lot of the times when she invites me, she's like, why don't you want to come out? And I'm like, girl, I got class. I got teen talk. I got jobs. Like I'm about my business.
You got stuff to do.
Yeah, like all work before play. And sometimes people don't understand that and they might see me as somebody who's just like a stuck in the mud, who just don't want to do anything, don't want to have fun. But people who know my character know like, oh, I can have fun, but we finna get this money first. So
exactly. And sometimes that's a really hard concept for people to grasp.
Yeah.
They don't get that until a really later time in life.
Exactly. And I see we have Kennedy back. So I want to give this last question off to you. Do you see cases of people in your personal life who have not fulfilled the brand they have presented to you? So I want to say this in the nicest way possible, but almost like somebody who is posing in your life, in your personal life, and they tell you things and they might not come through with what they say.
Absolutely. So sorry about that. It said my Zoom app failed.
No, you're fine. We have those technical difficulties.
Okay. So no, I definitely have seen people have a personal brand that they give out that they don't necessarily follow through with. There's a ton of people, I would even say in college, that present a personal brand that is against what they actually are about. I know people who post parties every single weekend and people don't even think they're in college and they have a 4.0.
Right.
I also have people who present that they are a 4.0 student and they do all of these things in their whole social media, their accomplishments, and all of the things that, people would admire them for, when in reality, they don't do any of those things. They don't keep up with their work. They don't pass their classes. They don't do anything. So, and I think this goes back to what I said in the beginning, because, Kayla, you said that your personal brand, your personal brand is that you work hard, you're about your business, things like that. Those, like I said earlier, those are characters.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? That's your character. Your personal brand is what you want people to see about you. So my personal brand is what I put on social media. When you think of personal brand, you want to think of, what are people going to think? What do I want them to think about me? Do I want them to think that I'm educated? Do I want them to think that, you know, I'm a party girl? Do I want them to think a statement about me? It's not necessarily how they feel about me, it's a statement about me. When they go on my social media, what are they going to come away with? So I think that people do it all the time where they want people to see a certain thing, and that may not be what you think it is that they want.
I like
Yeah.
that answer a lot. And I know Day, you have a comment, but we're actually coming to the end of this segment, and I love that we ended on that question. All right, go ahead, Day. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, Kennedy. So how important is it to live up to your personal brand? Like how important, like the things you post, how important is it to?
Okay, I like that question.
Yeah, to live up to that, you know, those standards.
For me, to live up to your personal brand is very important, right? So we'll just go back to Sean Dawson and Jeffree Star. Okay. If Jeffree Star tomorrow decided he was going to be a respectful human being, his personal brand is so much so that he's disrespectful that people would not find him funny, right? So if you've cultivated this whole persona that you're disrespectful and people are going to laugh at it, but tomorrow you decide, hey, I think I need to become a better person. And so all of his makeup videos turn into just him doing makeup.
Yeah.
People will decide that you're boring and they no longer want to follow you because they're not getting what they signed up for. So it doesn't matter if your personal brand is positive or negative. To live up to the personal brand that you put out is very important. Now, it's not to say that you can't change that personal brand, but there are ways and steps in which you have to go about it. For instance, you asked me before my Zoom app dropped, what do you do when you want to change your personal brand? Me, I put out a statement. So it sounds like bougie and like I think I'm all high and mighty and whatever, that I need to put out a statement for such a small thing. But if I change my mind on something that people know me about, then I have to make sure everybody knows I changed my mind on that.
Right.
So for instance, Other was an online magazine for women of color to band together and show camaraderie. And by women of color, I mean not just Black women, but non-Caucasian women in general. And we had to put out a statement, or are going to put out a statement, really not dismissing that point of view, but changing our outlet. We really only have Black women following us, and we have only Black women contributing. And at this time in place, I feel like not only Black women, I don't want to use that word, but our stories are very important to keep at the forefront. And so releasing a statement in saying that we're switching gears to focus on Black women, that's important because it changes our personal brand.
Right. It
I love
changes
that example.
people. Yeah, I love that example too, because it's almost like getting in front of what people might say and what things get out. And I feel like for me, the reason why I did want to put together this segment and this topic is because I feel like a lot of this stuff and all these like scandals or all these personality or personal brands on social media can be avoided if people, like you said, as soon as they change their mind, as soon as they decide this is who I'm going to be on social media today for the rest of how long, that they put out a personal statement and they let people know. Let people know before stuff comes out, because if you don't, then it seems like you're just being fake, or you're switching up, or you're doing it because of this and that. And that was very important with what you said. How about you, Deshawn? How do you feel about the switch up, about doing a personal statement? Do you feel like because your personal brand, it might be small in others people's eyes, that you might not have to do something like that?
I honestly feel like putting out a personal statement is something that's on your heart. If it's on your heart to do it, you definitely need to do it. As far as what Kennedy was saying, I feel like her putting out that statement was possibly on her heart. And it was something weighs on your heart, you have to let it go. You have to get it off your chest and let the world know what you're thinking, what you're visualizing, so people can really see the message and the power in your statement.
Okay, I like that. And it shows that you're being intentional. Like what we said before, or if you guys did not hear, a personal brand is also about your intentions, what you're trying to have people see about you, what authority you're trying to have over people. It's all about your intentions. So if you put out that statement because it was on your heart, that is what that was. Ajane, I wanted to ask you, when you have people in your life who, like I said before, did not reach that personal brand, or they aren't about what they say they are about, and all of a sudden they do decide to do that, what next step do you believe is important after they make that initial statement? What should follow that initial statement?
Following that initial statement should be consistency, because actions speak volumes over words. So you can say you're not about something, but people are not going to believe you until they see you do it. And that's why it's important to include both the statement, like you guys said, when you're changing something, but also put action behind it, or it's meaningless.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
And this has been an amazing segment. Before we end, I want to allow Kennedy to let us know where we can find her personal brand on Instagram, as well as the magazine that she has created for herself, written, and hosted.
Okay, so you can find me at Kennedy Chanel. Kennedy spelled like the president, Kennedy _ Chanel spelled like the brand _. That's on Instagram. That's my personal brand. And then my online magazine is other.lv. That's also on Instagram as well. And you can go to otherlv.com.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning into this Teen Talk conversation this week. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Teen Talk Vegas 881, and also check us out at teentalk.com, and stay tuned for more Teen Talk.